So it's an absolute privilege and an honor today to be with Lenerd, Louw. Yes, brother, thank you so much for this meeting today.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks to you. It's beautiful being here. It's wonderful chatting.
Yeah, I just want to tell the viewers out there and our friends and families how this meeting came about. I was staying here in Scarborough. I've been out from Costa Rica and I've been here for about the last 5 months now. I came out to Scarborough and I was staying with a friend, and her name was Niekerk, and we somehow got speaking about life and about Tantra and about the beauty of this life, and your name came up, and she mentioned that she'd been reading your book, and I had thought, and she said, I really want to meet him. So subsequently thereafter, we were down in the cafe here, I think on a Sunday, and I walked into the cafe and I saw you. And it was this, I linked eyes with you, and it was just this recognition that I feel with certain humans. And what for me that is, it's the deeper kind of recognition of the self, and the love that was exuding from you was a recognition within me. And then thereafter I realized, it was Lenerd, and that I'd heard your name before and had snippets about the book. So I just want to say thank you so much for being here today, and also for here to share the wisdom, that you've gone through so many trials and tribulations in your life. I think pretty similar to mine in some ways. And that's what I find so fascinating, is this inner transformation that takes place. And if you could share some of that, what you feel is in your heart now to share, would be amazing.
Oh, awesome, man. Yeah, no, it was super cool there here at Hull Earth Cafe, which is just down the hill here from me. I walked through a little garden path to get there. It was so like a connecting there and like chatting. And then as we were talking, you were like, fuck, you look familiar, man. And when you talked a little bit about rugby, and I said, what's your name? And it's Joe from Niekerk. I went, fuck, man, I'm really a big fan of your rugby. You've scored some awesome tries. And I love rugby, and you were iconic, man. So that is also for me, beautiful, so beautiful to connect in that way. And it's the same. I could see that inner glow in you. So that's beautiful. Yeah, that's been, that we were chatting a little bit earlier, our journeys in some way quite similar in a way, from being out there in a world that everyone would perceive as being very successful, so I was like a CEO of an insurance company, direct insurance company, and already in my early 40s, and everyone looking at that as like really being very successful. And as you were also sharing earlier about your rugby career, who doesn't want to be a Springbok rugby player, well, especially in South Africa, and also reaching that pinnacle. So in a way, both of us reaching those pinnacles, and then thinking, wow, there must be more. I would love to hear you also talk more about that. But then for me specifically, it was getting to that, and it was all cool, and I enjoyed the journey. But then at a point it became like, there's something different now. And I enjoyed, like I'm sure you enjoyed your rugby career. I enjoyed the business time, and I enjoyed building those businesses, and it was fun, it was exciting. But then it changed, in my early 40s it changed. It was like, okay, I've been there, done that now, it's great. It's not taking anything away from that beautiful journey and fun. It was always like really maverick businesses, and it was really consumer focused and heart centered. I was really pretty, and we went to work like this, so it was pretty chilled. But it was just that there was a big inner shift happening, inside me, and it was just this voice that said there's something new out there, and that led to this whole spiritual journey and learning and awakening. And my journey is almost, and your journey, I think, is also, it's just a reflection of almost everyone's journey now. And it's just vast awakening happening, and vast inner journeys happening. So yeah, I think that's just what's rapidly increasing across the planet. So for me, it was really then, I distracted myself for a few years with sex, drugs, jacuzzis, and so on. For 4 or 5 years, I had a lot of fun living at Clifton Beach. It was great, and but then eventually I surrendered. I went, no, fuck, I have to change something. And for me, it was clear out all of the old to allow the new to come in. That's when I resigned, sold and gave away almost all my possessions. I bought a backpack and a one-way ticket to Lima in Peru. That's what I wanted to ask you on this, right? So what was there? Was this a gradual awakening for you, or was it like one moment where you had like an epiphany where you thought, I'm done with this? Or was it like a gradual coming to that point of being like, because a lot of people talk about like the dark night of the soul, right? Sure. When you're doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result, but it doesn't arrive. Yeah. And so it very much for me, and that's what was fascinating for me, is to find out from you. Did it come over time, or was it like, did you wake up one morning and you said, no, yes, this has got to change now? No, it was more gradual. Right in the end, I went, fuck, I have to change now. That did happen. Yeah. But the voice that came in was more gradual. It was a number of things changing in my life. I mean, I moved from one business I was in Johannesburg to starting a new business for guys down here in Cape Town. I also, a 4-year relationship ended. New city, new job, a lot of stuff. And then also, so there was a lot of a lot of different things happening that almost set the ground for that. And then, but then basically in the process of then setting up this new business was still exciting, the go of it. And then as we started progressing more with it, I just went like, no, but I've done this before, The previous business I set up was a proper, beautiful, successful business. The previous business, it's now worth, but it's around, direct life insurance business, the first one in South Africa.
Yes.
And it was proper, successful business. And then now we're setting up this new thing. And it was just like, what am I I just copy paste something else now? Yeah. And I just felt like, wow, there's more to life, So it was more gradual, Joe. I just had this realization of like, is this really what I want to do? It could be a little bit boring. And then as I started doing it, and it was just me, one person. By the end, it was 500 people there. Yeah, it's just like I would walk on the floor, and I just felt, it doesn't feel right.
It's not for you. Yeah.
It shouldn't be here anymore, and it was proper confusing.
Yeah,
can you imagine? I've studied, all this stuff for many years, business and law and all of that, and then worked for long in a business environment, and you get to this point, so it was proper confusing. Yeah. Like, you're pinnacle of a career, earning a lot of money, most people would then just, you tick over.
Continue on,
You continue on, that's just normal, it's natural, it's of income coming in, and you're settled, you've proven yourself, but it was just that, hey man, I'm still relatively young. This whole life is ahead of me, and there's something new. I don't know what it was. I had absolutely no idea. I just knew there's just this voice saying to you should be doing something different. And then that was so confusing that I then for a couple of 3-4 years kind of sat with that, and that gradual process then went on, and it increased. The intensity of the voice increased.
Yes.
And the more I tried to distract myself with all my,
with all the shenanigans,
I thought I'm going to drown this voice out, but the voice just came stronger.
Wow.
So eventually, after 4 years, it was very much like I just exactly one. I kind of woke up and away. It was December 2012, which is a super interesting time period. If you look at the Mayan calendar and all, it's super. We don't want to go down that. That will take us on a long discussion. But it was December 2012. I just went like, okay, no, I'm surrendering now. It doesn't make sense to continue this process. I must just listen to this voice and see what's out there and clear out all the old and see what's coming. And I had no realization what will come in. Totally different to what I thought. I just went totally jump off the cliff into the unknown, into the deep inner journey, out there without any knowledge of any expectation or insights of what will come. It was just an open jump into the unknown.
It's unbelievable that you talk about also that you discarded your possessions, and and then also I think what you mentioned too is that we can fill our senses to this point where it's overbearing on us. Like with what, as you mentioned, chasing the drugs, the woman, this constant thing that we kind of and that almost as we. For high achievers, which you are one for sure, the person that's been in those echelons of like higher achievement for going for things, and I can speak for myself, but I almost feel like the conditioning from very young to be a success in this world, and what we deemed as success was that I had the big car, I had the hot chick, I had everything at my disposal, and when we get to that point, we recognize, wait, but am I any happier?
Yes.
Has this given me more in my life? I feel like more the understanding that one should be relinquishing these things as opposed to becoming chasing it.
Yes.
In that way.
No, exactly, and often people chase it, and when they get to that point, then they realize like, what the fuck, this was this is not giving me what I thought I would get, and so, and there's nothing wrong with achieving. There's nothing running a business. There's nothing competing at top in a sport and in rugby or anything. There's nothing wrong with it. But if that's the only thing, and you think that is going to give you satisfaction or happiness or meaning in life, it's not. It's still cool to do that and can have fun with it. But I believe it's a deep inner journey. It's a deep inner journey to meeting yourself. And the deeper you meet yourself, the deeper you can meet other people, and the deeper they can meet you.
Yes, well, I can tell you, brother, that is exactly it's like exactly what I recognize in your eyes when I see that, and I recognize that, and that inner journey, that going within, is not for everyone, right? Sure. Because as you say, like whether we believe in karma or past lives or reincarnation, things like that we are a soul and we're going through an incarnation, and our soul is coming closer and closer to God. But we always are with that, right? But it's just that potentially people are on different stages in that evolution. And so, as you said, there's nothing wrong with success or achievement in this world, for going things in this world. There's nothing wrong with that. It's great, because one must go through that journey, and that's where the uniqueness of your journey comes in, right? Because it's like, I've been in somebody training, and I don't know if you know the great spiritual teacher Ram Dass.
Yes.
But he talked about somebody training, right?
Yeah.
And then when I started to look at that, it made so much sense, and I think it's comparable to your journey too, because you reached like the height of what you can reach in terms of business, right? Like, and you had all these things at your fingertips. You had financial freedom, you had everything, right? A successful $billion companies, all this stuff. So to get to that point, and then to have that realization that, wait, I've been in somebody training for how many, 30, 40 years of my life, right? Like to be becoming somebody. And what is it? Somebody within society, somebody within the eyes of others. And so that leads you back into what you just spoke about now. But the one thing I wanted to talk about that is the friction, right? And the pain that comes with that, the unbearable suffering that comes with that process. Because once we realize like how much we've been hurting ourselves, or how much we've been ignoring or pushing down the pain, or distracting, as you mentioned. So things like this, how was that for you as well in terms of your process?
No, it was pretty tough, pretty hard. I would love to know. After that, I would love to hear how it was for you, man. I would love to hear you.
Sure.
Your journey there. No, it was pretty tough. For me, it was really hard. I was living in a beautiful place of the world, like you. I've been all around the world, and this part of the world is still beautiful. Cape Town, an Atlantic coast here, Atlantic Ocean, and but I didn't see the beauty in the stuff anymore. And that's so I started. As you say, earning a lot of money, and then weekends, a lot of women at my place, and a lot of fun. But most people would go like, "Wow, you're living the life," and an amazing, looked all great, but there was an emptiness inside that started happening, and I didn't have it really before, but it started really happening because I was actually disconnected from myself and disconnected from nature and from my soul, from God, whatever you want to call it. And then when it really started becoming, it increased that disconnection. And then one day I actually write in my book about it, Jump, an Epic Soul and Sex Adventure. I write about it, my rock bottom Clifton beach walk. And one Saturday I just went for a walk on the beach. Fuck, Joe, after 5 minutes I was bored. I mean, I was on this beautiful beach, like beautiful blue sea and a Table Mountain behind, and after 5 minutes I was like, I'm a bit bored now, and I'll go home and call some people to come over, come and party. And then I knew I was in big shit. Because I always loved nature, I always loved being out there, and when I realized that I couldn't see the beauty around me in this planet, I knew I was totally disconnected, and that was pretty hard. It was really, really tough.
Like a realization of that, like when you went through that realization, you realized like, wait a minute, there's something's off.
Something is off, because I always had a huge excitement for life. When I really had it, my teenager, at varsity, business. I always like a young guy and starting in business, always, but I lost that excitement. It was that inner excitement was gone, and it was not seeing the beauty of the beautiful nature around me, but also not feeling, that inner excitement inside me, and that was pretty tough. That was like, like, wow, there's something wrong here, and it was almost, I almost want to say, just to be very vulnerable and direct about it, it was almost like I was never I suppose, suicidal, but I was very much at a point where I was thinking, if I were to die now, it's okay, And, oh man, it's heavy, and I've never been that, I've always been a fucking upbeat, positive guy, and it was like, is this it, and it's okay, maybe things happen now and I exit, the planet is fine, and when I had those thoughts, I went, no man, that's not, it was never like this, and there's so much beauty around us, and beauty in other people, and beauty in myself, so I need to shift something to get that back.
And I definitely can relate to you on that, in terms of, I also had similar kind of things happen towards the end of my career, and I feel like for me it was almost, because for the last 6 months of my career, I was playing in Toulon, and the coach at the time, he pulled me right out of the mix. So he pulled me like from the integral and captain of the team, he pulled me like right out of the mix, and then even onto the stands. So for me, that was like a big hit to my ego, basically. And then, but that was the catalyst to start to research and go into kind of Buddhist principles around how they would approach adversity, or how, in my world, that was the biggest thing, right, at the time. But I mean, comparatively to what's happening in the world, it was nothing. It was just my ego. And so the realization of that, going through that process, and then recognizing that how I would show up, it was the most important thing. So I would go to training, I would hold the bags as best as I could for that last 6 months. I would give just as much energy. I would go to the coach every morning and greet him and give him a smile and say, bonjour coach, comment ça va, keep it positive, and it's a crazy how that shifted things for me personally. As much as that situation was difficult, it shifted the situation, because at the end of that, I was actually Bernard Laporte, who was the Minister of Sport in France, and our coach at the time. He came to me and he said, Joe, for you, I'll do anything for you. On the last night, at the end of the season, when Toulon had won everything, they'd won the European Cup, they'd won the French League competition, and I didn't play in either one of those games right at the end. And that night, I remember I was saying to myself, I really just don't want to party. I don't want to go out. I can't do this anymore. I can't put these toxins into my body. I physically can't do it. But I was like, okay, one more for the boys, because they phoned me and they said, one more, come on. So I went, and that night he came to me and he said, whatever favor you want, you got it. And I was just like, okay, sweet. So it showed me that, like, our positivity and how we show up, and not losing faith. And if your ego, if it is just your ego, it is just your ego, right? And those were the deeper kind of lookings to see, like, once I had finished, because I'd gone through that stage of, you know, like just using my body with anti-inflammatories, drugs, alcohol, like just hammering it, right? And right up into that last night. And the next day I woke up and I just had inflammation everywhere. And I just decided in that moment, I said, that is it for me. And because I'd been, that voice inside you spoke about that became stronger and stronger and stronger, that would not stop any longer. It was too powerful, too strong to say, I'm going to carry on doing this. And so I just shifted everything in the day, and I think 2 days later I went on to a 21-day juice fast and just threw myself into that. But it's so fascinating for me, because we do these things, you know, we're involved within these processes, and then the actual, like, the pain and the suffering that it takes to look at those things. And also, I don't know if a theme of yours through the process was forgiveness, because for me it was forgiveness for myself first. As I'd gone through that process, was one of the first, like with plant medicine, was the biggest realization for me, was that I hadn't forgiven myself. And then also around trauma, that there was specific from a trauma of losing my father when I was 14 years old, that trauma had been playing out for 20 years of my life without resolving it.
Oh wow, wonderful, man.
Yeah.
And what was the forgiveness, if I may ask?
Yeah, so the forgiveness was related to forgiving myself for how I had treated my body, how I treated myself, how I treated others, because I'd done things in the past, you know, like that weren't aligned with truth, that were, you know, things that at the time seemed fine, but when I got to that point of, like, cleaning out everything, I realized, like, and I may never forget it, like, it was a 7-day retreat that I was in with plant medicine. And it was funny, because when I arrived there, the shaman, she was a small Peruvian woman, she looked at me and she said, "Keep the medicine inside of you." And I'm like, what does she mean? And then I'm like, the way that I interpreted it, don't purge. Yeah, so then for like literally 2 ceremonies, I'm going through all of these undescribable emotion and journeying and nausea and all this, but I'm not purging. And then the final night, I'm there and I'm just, again, max nausea. And then my brother next to me, American dude, he just goes, "Joe, get it out, mate, get it out." So I go outside and literally, like, projectile purge. And in that moment, I just purging, and it was all from all orifices, the slime and toxic sludge from all the years, from like 15 years of carnage. And I literally was lying on the floor, and then this overwhelming sense of gratitude, and then I realized, like, I need to forgive myself for everything and forgive others. And it was just like my heart cracked open in that moment, and I just started to cry, and then I just remember one of the brothers, he came and he said, "You are the light, my brother. You are the light." So,
that's beautiful, man. Fascinating that you said, you know, keep the middle. That's beautiful. Like, it probably made that so much more intense when you actually did it? Because I also don't know, ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Fuck, I was purging the whole fucking stand through. Like, bottom, top, you know, like.
Is it? All the way through.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. Yeah, that forgiveness part is a big part, huh?
Yeah.
And, you know, and I'm fascinated also by, you know, that last bit with the rugby career, where you then drop into, if I can ask, what gave you that? What was the realization that brought you to act in that way with that positivity? Because there's obviously two ways. One can get pretty negative and say, "Oh, fuck this stuff," or, you know, you chose the other route. So what? Because that's quite interesting. I'm just thinking, you know, for other people out there that go through this, you know, people go through the same journey and they say, oh, that's cool, you guys, that's cool that happened to you, but what are the things that I can do? Or they can maybe going through the same thing, but you know, what helped you there?
Yeah, so that's a beautiful question, right? It's like, for me, it's exactly as you say, and I think that it came with experience, because I'd been in teams for very many years, like probably 20 years up until that point, and I saw within teams when players aren't selected, they'll go into pockets of the players that aren't selected, and they'll talk with other players, and they'll say, you know, this coach is a dick. He's a dick. He's no good. I'm so much better than I'm so much better. I should be playing. You know, and it's all just this ego play that plays out. And so when in that moment, obviously I went home and I realized like, wow, I'm like really out of the mix here. And I had a little cry and I was pissed. Like it was my ego that was hurting, you know. But then as time went on, I started to say, you know what, how can I pitch up into this space, and how can I add value? How can I continue to give what I gave before? And I think that's just a shift in your mindset, because you can sit there and you can be the victim of that situation. You can create pockets of negativity. You can also slag off the coach and say he's not good enough, whatever the reasons may be. But I feel like the way to kind of come through that and to transcend that. And then it also made a lot of sense to me, because I started to research like the Dalai Lama, some of these more serious things, like people get like monks getting killed by Chinese, you know, and then I'm putting it into perspective. I'm like, oh, my little ego is getting strange here, but I'm like, these oaks are getting killed, you know.
In perspective, it's like
so that put things into perspective for me around like, and as I said, like the proof was, so then I didn't finish that story. So what happened? How's this now? I get right to the end. I'm with Bernard Laporte. He says to me, Joe, I give you any favor you want, you know. And so I say, okay, amazing, thank you so much, whatever. Couple of months later, I'm applying for the French passport.
Okay.
And I'm waiting for my papers from South Africa. And then what happens is my papers coming from South Africa are a year late.
Okay.
So I get these papers and I have to apply in this timing, and it's a year late. So I say, okay, well, let me phone jail card, you know, like let me phone Bernard Laporte. So I sent him a message to say, Bernard, like, can you help me with this? The next day I was passport done. And I'm like, yes, I knew there was a reason to stay positive.
The universe came back and said, oh man, well done.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, because I know you've been like, reading the book and going into detail of that, the story, this transformation that you had, and then just having this courage and this faith to step into this whole other world, right? And just follow. Would you say that you were really following your intuition in that point in your life?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I had absolutely fucking nothing else to follow, Joe.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I mean, in those days, 2012, 2013, especially in a business space, there was no one to talk to.
Yeah. About this.
Yeah. And in Cape Town and South Africa and in business space, you know. And I mean, also I was the business leader, so there's no one in the business you can talk to. I mean, people who's confident, you can't talk to them, you know, I mean, you can talk to maybe other friends and stuff, but there's no one in the business space to talk to. None of my friends were going through it. And I wasn't aware of any. I started reading some books, you know, some spiritual books and
while you were still doing
yes, that last 6 months here, I read Robin Sharma, the monk, you know.
Yeah, I know it. The
monk who sold his Ferrari. You know?
Yeah, yes.
And then I also started reading Paulo Coelho a lot, Alchemist and stuff like that. So I had some help, but it was very much in the reading stuff, you know. I had no one to talk to. So the only thing I could do was to follow my intuition, man. It's the only thing. I mean, that's why it took me 4 years to follow that intuition, because it was like, no, man, that doesn't make sense. But eventually I surrendered, and I surrendered to following my intuition. And I think that's maybe the beautiful message out there to people, you know, on both our stories, is to actually, to trust your intuition, because the truth is all inside us, you know. Yes, some gurus and some books and stuff can help bring it out, but it's all inside us. It all takes us into the truth within us, you know. And so therefore, if you have the strong intuition, you know, coming up, to really listen to it and to follow it, you know, to question it and explore it and ask the questions. But that's a critical step. So for me, long answer to a short question, but it was really to follow the intuition, and then from there, just to trust that, you know, do this leap of faith, and then to trust that it'll be okay, and that to trust that I don't know what's going ahead. I'm once again at that spot, you know, no knowledge of where I'm going and unknown. But then, really just to follow what I call the breadcrumbs, you know. So I jumped off the cliff, went overseas to South America, and you're going to really laugh. I was actually on my way to New York because my mind, you know, my limited mind was thinking, I'm just bored with this business, I must find another business. So I thought I'll go to New York and check out businesses, go study maybe something there. And, you know, our mind is so small, you know, and our being is so much wider than the mind, you know. And then, you know, a lot of people think, you know, your mind is everything. It's just a small fraction. So my mind came up with that plan. The only thing is the temperature in New York was like -4 degrees in January. You know, for an African to go to, I mean, no, fuck this shit. I'm gonna go to South America first. It's summer there. Spend like from January, I went January 2014 that I left. And I'll spend there from Jan till about May, and then May I'll be in New York. Needless to say, I haven't been to New York.
Didn't happen,
I never still haven't. Well, maybe one day, but I just started, the whole journey started. After a few months in South America, I got seriously sick with parasites. I dropped from a lean, fit, strong 82 kg, man. I was the strongest in my life, and I did a lot of martial arts and boxing, and, you know, obviously a lot of sex over the weekends. Yeah. So I was in proper good shape in my 40s, you know, and late 40s, but I dropped from 82 kg to 72 kg with parasites, getting seriously sick. And that took me on a route to, you know, the shamanic route, you know, meeting a shaman. That took me into plant medicine, took me into spiritual, sexual shamanism, took me to India and meditation, mindfulness. Also, stayed in a village where the Dalai Lama lived for 2 months. You know, all of that accelerated that thing.
Yes.
You know, so it was this journey that was just took on its own, you know. My mind had this little perception of, I'm going to check businesses out, go to South America, then all of this happened, and then I went, wow, no, there's a much bigger picture here. And I just started following those, you know, breadcrumbs, you know. I suppose the universe brought me those, the illness and stuff, so I could really be, as you said, almost your ego knocked, you almost give up, you know. I mean, I took some antibiotics don't kill parasites, you know, it didn't help. I had to find other routes.
Sure.
And shamanic and energy work and plant medicine and deep inner work. And then once I've been healed from that, I was already on that journey of expansion, and then I just continued for another number of years, another 4 or 5 years, 35 countries on that journey.
That was actually going and teaching in those countries eventually, or how did that happen, that transition?
It was mostly learning. I was a full-time student for 4 or 5 years, you know. I assisted at some workshops and so on, but mainly I was actually just learning. And towards the latter part of that, I'd started doing some stuff in India. I did some emotional expression release in a smaller village there, and I kind of got a class together, and I taught it there, and get some paid by donation. It was super cool. And then, you know, when I came back to South Africa, I wrote a book out there. Then I started sharing my experiences, and I don't even say teaching, because I basically just share my experiences, you know, so you can call it teaching, but it's mainly sharing my experiences. And then as I teach, I actually learn much more coming back, and it's always this two-way process. So it's expanded from there into a wider role, I suppose.
You know what, the thing that stands out for me the most in the way when you talk, there's such a beauty within your story, and there's a humility within there, and that for me I recognize, and that for me is one of the essential parts of the journey, is that bringing that humility, and I can sense that within you, right? And I think that's because of being at such a high in your life, you know, being on the top of what everyone considers to be the top, and then completely transforming your life and stepping into the unknown. Because there's let's face it, like not many people are willing to just give everything up and go for it, right? And to follow the intuition. I think that's the thing, because I've seen in my own life when I haven't followed that intuition, because I've given it to my mind, and my mind works out and analyzes and rationalizes things, then, you know, I'm not actually living towards, like, in alignment with that authenticity of that. So it's like, so that's just been an interesting thing. And then also just in hearing you talk, and I feel like also when you're in let's just say we're in a room together, and someone with a very strong opinion and identity around who they think they are comes into the space. For me, I'm not gravitating necessarily to that person. I'm gravitating more to the one that comes in that's got this other frequency that they're carrying, right? And I'm more drawn to that. And there's a reason why. It's where they're at on their path, of course, but it's just there's something around that leaves a bad smell, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. No, it's almost that, and because you're vibrating at that higher kind of frequency, and so you actually recognize it in that person, and it's almost as if that, you know, that person is is the medicine himself.
Yes.
You know? Isn't
it
sometimes funny?
Yes.
You know, I got one of our good friends across the world that I also learned some stuff from. He was also a teacher on some of this trainings. Was very much, you know, he said, when you walk into the room, you know, just be the medicine. You know, walk into the room and you're the medicine. You know, you don't have to say much. If you live it, you breathe it. You know, if you change, if you want to see the change in the world, out in the world, you know, do it in yourself first, and then just be it. And that is actually the transmission that happens, and the medicine that happens then, you know. And if someone wants to ask you stuff, then yes, you can explain them and whatever. But in a way, you don't even have to. So I like that example that you gave, you know. Sometimes the quiet guy in the room there is actually the medicine, you know. He's the guy that you want to always feel drawn to and go talk to, and there's maybe a lot of medicine there in that space.
That's the beautiful thing, because even in the valley where we live, a lot of my friends that are there, they carry that the being, you know, and it's very present when you come into conversation and discussion, and so it's almost as if, you know, in alignment, in terms of the alignment from like their thoughts, their words, and their deeds, all the actions, thoughts, and deeds are all aligned. And it's almost like alignment in truth, and it's a beautiful thing to be in the company of that, because as you say, it's like the medicine you're getting, you're sharing, you're bathing in each other's love, right? Because there's no like, I think what also the ego is creating this competition, and it's creating separation, and it's without potentially consciously even knowing it, but it plays out in that way, you know. So it's just a beautiful thing that having you crystallized in this way, and having dissolved, you know, because obviously to a degree, you know, I was contemplate that about the saints and sages, like, you know, as you mentioned, if that is already within us, you know, how much of the ego do we need? How much of that ego within the, one would say, potentially in the world, we need to, you know, fight for our food or whatever we need, you know, in our lives from that perspective. But then when I look at sometimes like my master Sri Muji, he when I'm listening to him talk, it seems that is not even within his reality, you know, that it's all just flowing, and that whatever he's receiving in this process is just coming directly from that, you know. So it seemed just a very as you mentioned about the trust and intuition and everything stemming from that place.
And I think we believe we're moving into a consciousness in a world of where, and I know we're not close to that yet, and that's also okay, but we're definitely moving more towards collaboration instead of competition. I really believe that. And in some way competition is also good, like run from there to there, be fit up and down, I totally, that's good, but there's also been such massive unhealthy competition on this planet, which has almost destroyed the planet and a lot of people in the process. And collaboration is such collaboration, it can only come if the ego is a little bit less in the ego.
Yeah.
So I think it's
yes, brother. It's so good to be here with you today.
Yeah.
So grateful for the opportunity to sit with you. And there's some things also related to sexuality that are obviously you've been training in that for many years, and related to sexuality and specifically like men's health and men's sexuality and certain processes that I find within my own life that have helped me on related to my sexuality. And I feel like things like semen retention, being aware of that, being aware of the loss of that, of the vital force, for what I wanted to actually just you to share whatever it is that you feel related to that could be potentially amazing for the men out there to hear.
Yeah, no, beautiful, excellent, Joe. That's men's sexuality is something that not much spoken about. Women's sexuality the last 50 years, there was so much stuff about written about it, and all the different female orgasms, and spots from G spot to A spot or whatever, so much about it. But men's sexuality, very little. And men traditionally don't, speak to each other about sex, apart from a short one-liner about, boosting, about something that happened. But it is not a detailed, vulnerable discussion. So I believe we're moving now into a world where there's also a lot of men doing this inner work. So it's like men really drop deep inside themselves in a lot of areas, but also on the sexuality space. And often people do a lot of work and all the different areas of their life, and then the last thing that they go to is the sexuality part. Now that's okay, but one has to go there. You have to drop into the sexuality and see what conditioning is there, and shame and fear and guilt and all of that. So that's a big part. It's a big part. A big passion for me is to, generally speaking, lift that and help lift that with men and women. To get the guilt, shame, fear kind of lifted in their sexuality space. And then definitely for men, because there's so little talked about it. And you talk about semen retention and, just the fact that a man can have orgasms without ejaculation, and a man can be multi-orgasmic, similar to women, most people, most guys, only women go like, what are you talking about when you say that? But we know that in ancient China, ancient India, the Taoists and the Tantrics have been doing it for 2,500-3,000 years ago. The practices there, and it's just gone a little bit, in the Western world, forgotten about. Luckily, that's coming out more now. So I talk about that. I do courses about that. I do 21-day journeys for guys, for 21-day journey, where online journeys where you don't watch porn, you don't ejaculate. There's morning routines, rituals that we do. A deep inner journey, and that kind of make them better or great lovers also, because now you can last longer in bed, and your woman has got so much more pleasure and orgasms. But it is much more than that. It actually find the guys drop deep inside, and they start loving themselves. It's like you said earlier, what are the parts of us that we don't love, and that we're hard and harsh on ourselves, that we don't forgive. And so once you start doing that journey, you become so aware of your body and your ejaculation, but it means you become so much more aware of your own being. Yes. And then you really can drop in deep within, and you also become more aware of everything around you. Awareness breeds awareness. As you so beautifully talk about, with your journeys, the plant medicine journeys. Yes. So that's a big passion. So I think there's there's so much for men to drop into not just the deep inner journey, generally speaking, but also into the sexuality part.
It's so fascinating for me because I was involved with a deep dive into that over the last like 2-3 months, and it's interesting to me, the flux and flow of like the sensitivity within the body, and that like a lot of the pressure goes towards the genitals, and it's like, because at one point in time I felt a lot that my energy was being dispersed in my body, and I wasn't having all the energy going to that point, right, to the penis. And so I experienced these potentially like orgasm within the body, but not like, you know, having a full-blown orgasm within the body, you know, without ejaculation. And so those are the two things that I'm like really wanting to explore in my own life, to lengthen those periods of time, to because as far as I understand, ejaculation and orgasm are two separate things, right? But because of like our conditioning and how we've been processing things as men, and what we've been taught, because we haven't obviously been taught the real truth around these things. Sure. That those are one thing, and that every time, you know, it's like an ends to a means. We come with our partners, and you know, we're going to get this, and that's it. And then we go from 0 to 100 within 2 seconds. And so it's fascinating for me because obviously there's specific techniques, right, that you talk about, moving energy, different ways of exploring and allowing for those sessions to become more harmonious, and as opposed to being just having like this, but like more harmonious and like lovemaking and like extending those periods of time where we don't just jump from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and the reason that it's like that is also important for us not to be so hard. I say to the guys, not to be hard on ourselves about it, because it's quite logical, the reason why it's like that. You know, because when you're a teenage boy, you know, when you masturbate to your self-pleasure, you know, it's like often rushed. You know, you're either in the shower or in the room there,
because you're hiding, man.
Yeah, you're hiding because you're doing something wrong.
Right?
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
So your body gets trained.
Yeah.
And I can imagine this now. Your body actually gets trained to come fast.
Yeah.
And then you get introduced to porn.
Yeah.
And then in your teens and your 20s, I mean, some guys for the whole life was on a daily basis porn. And porn also, it's all about the money shot, you know?
Yeah,
ejaculation shot.
Bish, bish,
you know?
bish, yeah.
Exactly. It's all about ejaculation. I mean, there's even these clocks. The other day I checked it out. You know, like this little clock there. A friend of mine told me, ex-partner, and I checked it out. Like tick, 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 to see how quickly you're going to ejaculate.
Oh my gosh!
So now it's like you trained as an athlete. So now you train to be a sprinter. You know, your whole life you train to be a sprinter, and then you get into bed with a woman, and now you want to run a marathon.
Yeah, no, it ain't gonna work. Yeah,
it ain't gonna work, man. Your body is trained to come within 2 minutes or 30 seconds or 5 minutes or whatever. You know, so. Now you're with a woman, and you come too fast, and the reason why it's good not to come so fast is because women's bodies are so different. You know, it takes them longer time to warm up.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
It's just a practical thing. You know, it's not being hard on the guys to say, you know, last longer. It's really, if you want to have a proper lovemaking session with your partner, you need to hold it longer or last longer, because she can get warmed up.
Exactly.
Women mainly after like only about 15-20 minutes really warm up and get into the orgasmic state.
Yes.
So, and if you look on some of the stats, you know, all over the world, I mean, I think it's on average 4-5 minutes. That on average, the average, not the average that guys make love before ejaculating.
Yeah,
then 5 minutes is far too short for a girl, you know, for a woman to get to that point.
Exactly.
So that's the one of the, you know, those are the reasons why that happens. But then it's so easy to change that. You can change it. You know, one practical tip is just when you self-pleasure. I love the word self-pleasure in other masturbation.
Yeah.
Is that you then don't come in like 5 to 3 minutes, but you actually last at least 20 minutes.
Yes.
And sometimes you don't even come, but you at least do 20 minutes. And you also, you know, touch your arms, man.
Rub your body.
Yeah, not just your
pleasure
genitals,
yourself.
you know.
Pleasure all over your body, you mean?
Yeah. I had a workshop here up in the Free State. This big farming guy, tough oak, we were in the workshop. And we were talking about the self-pleasuring, how to do it, and it, and then there was like it was a couple workshop, with couples, him and his wife and whatever. And afterwards in a sharing circle, a guy started crying. He said, "Man, I've never touched my arm like that." Yeah. He said, "I've got a beautiful arm. When I touched my arm, I felt so." Sure, man. It was so beautiful to see, because that guy would tell us these things,
Yeah.
So the moment you start doing that, and you don't just go for the genitals, but you're actually exploring your body and love your body.
Yeah.
It's, as you mentioned so beautifully before, the energy doesn't just stay in your groin area. It now moves through the whole body.
Sure.
Now you can start experiencing all this pleasure in the rest of your body. Plus, you now can last longer because the energy is not just at your groin area; it's in your body. Because the moment it's in your groin area and it just stays there, it builds, it eventually
then
has
it will
to go.
Yeah, exactly. So you're not like dispersing the energy in other places. Yeah.
That's exactly, and you can disperse it, breathe it up. Other things. You can breathe it up, and just it sounds good. Don't worry too much if the guys are doing this woo woo. Don't worry too much, but just breathe up and just put your intention there that the energy will go.
Well, energy will go up,
because it will go where the intention is. And if you don't feel it moving, doesn't matter. But actually, just to
have that, to even if it was imaginary at first, or moving it in that way, right? Yeah, no, it's fascinating for me because the exploration into that, obviously, having just sexual interaction, lovemaking, but that's bringing a deeper connection with your partner. It's not about an ends to a means, or that I'm just going to get my rocks off, or things that like that, how we've been conditioned to feel as men, but more about how can I have this experience with my lady and like really connect with her deeper, and
beautiful.
Like look into her eyes, but I feel like also that it's those practices, as you mentioned, or it's like retraining your body, right, in your nervous system to get to really be in that kind of direction of maintaining and doing it in a slow right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, as you say, the journey rather than the destination.
Yeah.
Because the ejaculation is, so taught that's the destination. And once you get that out of your mind and out of your body, and you can, actually it's about this journey that you're with her.
Yeah.
And as you say, look in her eyes, having this journey with her, there's magic that happens when you look in someone's eyes when you make love. And, you just drop into that and feel your body, feel hers, play around, roll around.
Yeah.
And then that becomes this deep soul connection, and still ejaculate at a point if you want to, but the beauty is you can also make love and only ejaculate every 10th or 20th time or second time that you make love.
Yeah.
So there's so much there for us to play around with, and as you say, then by doing that, it gives you more intimate time with her.
Yeah.
Imagine now for an hour you're making love, and it's not just penetration, not just friction, but what beautiful heart connection comes out of that.
Just amazing. That's the juicy stuff, man. I love that so much. So I've been doing these practices to share the energy, to spread the energy, and then what I found lately, that's what I wanted to mention, is that once you have that hit, right? Once you have the ejaculation, orgasm and ejaculation at one time, it's almost like a junkie. It's like a heroin junkie, because you're releasing all this dopamine and oxytocin and all this in your body. And that in itself can be addictive, right? You could keep wanting to copulate or have the same experience. And so I've found that because for some time now I've been really, really working on spreading the energy, using the breath, breathing deeply, breathing into my belly, doing all those processes. And then what I found is very quickly I went back into my old pattern. And so that's interesting for me, how that can also come back, I suppose.
Sure.
And that's what I was going to ask you. Is it because, and then there's some questions here, but is it for everyone? Is it for every man to experience or to explore, non-ejaculative orgasms? Is it for every man? And then related to the first question, what's the quickest way to us to flip back if we do go back to ejaculation and orgasm as like becoming the predominant thing, where we want to actually have more of the space and more, you know, room when we're in that space to just be first of all, and then also just to be calm.
No, sure. So firstly, I believe it's an addiction. I really believe that ejaculation is an addiction.
Yeah.
Because your body just get used to that heat, as you say.
Exactly. Yeah.
Whether it's for everyone, for me, it's important that I think everyone knows about it.
Yeah.
I'm like on a mission for everyone, not just every man, but every woman to know about this. And I want to be by 2028, like half the planet to know about it, and then they can decide whether they want to do it or not.
Yeah.
So I think I think that's the big part, is that if you don't know, you don't know what you don't know. So for people to realize that this is an option, this is for me the big part, and then to experiment with it.
Yes.
You know, so and then one can then have it where you do make love in this way,
yes,
you know, 4 months, and then other way where you can maybe don't.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, so you switch.
Yeah, you can switch.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I do it sometimes, Joe. I mean,
yeah.
So my ejaculation frequency now is like once every like 2-3 weeks.
Once every 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, and I make love almost on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But I only ejaculate every 2 weeks or so.
Yeah. That sounds healthy though, right?
You know, where I am now, you know, it depends. In your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s,
it decreases as you go.
That's
on,
right. Yeah. And it's for your own personal experience. And about a year ago, 10 years ago, it was probably about once a week.
Yeah.
So in my 40s, were about once a week. Now once in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I think, you know, in your 20s, you know, every 3-4 days, you know, it's also fine. So it's finding that right frequency.
Yeah.
So it's not to, because sometimes the guys get confused, and people get confused about it means that don't ever ejaculate. It's not about that. It's just it's about conscious ejaculation.
Conscious ejaculation.
It's like becoming aware of your body and knowing how often, what is good, what's the frequency that's good.
Yeah.
And then when you ejaculate, to be conscious about it. Now imagine you now with your woman in bed there, and you say to her, hey, baby, you know, whilst you're making love or before you're making love, you know, I want to gift you my seat tonight.
Yeah, exactly. That's very different,
it's different, huh?
Yeah, much different energy.
It's different energy. And
yeah.
I've had women that go like, wow.
Wow,
you know?
yeah,
and
exactly.
And then you ejaculate and look in the eyes, and it's a conscious ejaculation.
Yeah.
You know? And you've done it only now 2 weeks ago, let's say, you know, and you made love a lot of times in between. You know, then the sacredness of it is really experienced in such a bigger way. You know?
Yeah, no. I feel you on that. Like, I think that also consciously coming to that point of ejaculation with your partner, when she's orgasming, you're orgasming, and then it's like it's a union. It's even bringing your connection like so much tighter, and so much you can sense it, right?
That's exactly.
So I think, and also as you mentioned, I love what you said about consciously doing those things in your life, and I feel like all aspects of our lives, as we become more conscious, we start to wanting to bring consciousness to all aspects of our lives, not just maybe one thing in our relationships, but to all aspects of our lives. And so this for me is very important in terms of men's sexual health, but also just exploration of sexuality for a man. And especially like with all of our conditioning and the things we've been told and taught, not necessarily those things aren't necessarily aligned with truth. And that's why I feel like this role, as you say, as men that have had these transformations in their lives, to be able to share, which you've been doing for many years, but just to share that and to share the wisdom, the real wisdom around it, and to get that truth out there. Because I think a lot of what the media says is very different from those truths. You know, as you mentioned about the Tao, the Taoists, they've been practicing for 3,000 years or more, and so to bring light to that knowledge and that wisdom. And so I also just wanted to tell you a story, but it was very interesting. So I had my awakening, and I'd cleaned up my act and related to what I was putting in my body and just what I was feeding my mind with what I was when I was processing this awakening and going through it. I was really cleaning up my act on all the various levels. And so I had been included into this group, and the group's name was Kakpraat.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so what the group was a group of men that were sharing different things, right?
Okay.
Some of the jokes, derogatory things about women, sexuality, porn, different things. But I didn't realize that. And I'd been cleaning up my act completely. So I'm like on the phone, and next thing that comes through, it's some oak, and he's just like, and I'm like, what, dude? Like, this is just like, and it's coming straight to our phone. I'm just like, this is too much, man. I can't do this. Like, I'm like all holy right now, right? I'm just like pure. I'm like, I'm done with this stuff. So I decided in that moment, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna write an email to all of my mates. I'm going to send it to them. I'm going to state exactly where I am, because I haven't seen them after rugby. I went into like solitude vibe for like 2 years. And so I hadn't seen any of them. They didn't know the transformation I'd been on, right? So I wrote them this long email, like stating, I don't stand for this anymore. I'm done with this. Like all these things. And I sent it off to them. And one mate was just like, he phoned another mate. He's like, what happened with Joe? What's going on with him, man? What's going on? Tell me. Because I like literally said, I was like, guys, I love you all so much, but I honestly just don't want to be part of Kakpraat. Take me out of it. and I was just like, done. And it's like, it's amazing what like energy it created, like ripples, But it's interesting you mentioned, and I wanted to also mention that, is that porn, right? We've all been through porn as men, and I see the harm within the porn. I can see it so much. And so what is your view upon that?
Fuck, man. No, I did a very interesting experiment when I was traveling the world. I actually told my current partner about it the other day. And so I'm super lucky that I've never been addicted to porn. So I've never had a big history with porn. Obviously, I watch porn, but I've never got to, I work with guys and almost, I would say, almost like most men are addicted to it, or have been at a point. Like the guys share in the circles about it. So I've been pretty lucky that it really didn't catch me so much. I think I was always more keen about the live experience. I was always like, fuck, if I could get this real woman to sit here on my lap, and even if it means I have to go to Mavericks, Gentleman's Club, when I like to get a stripper sit on me. I'd rather have a stripper sit on me, or I'd rather have a beautiful girlfriend sitting on me than the screen. So I was pretty lucky that way. But I know it's a big problem for a lot of guys, and I actually did some experiments with it when I was overseas. Yes, Joe, I had this crazy thing. I was in South America, and I was doing a lot of workshops and stuff, and a deep inner journey. And I also went, okay, wow, porn. And I also had a bit of a celibate period there of like about almost 2 year period whilst I was overseas, the first part of it. And also then I also watched, one night a bit of porn, and I went, okay. And then I actually noticed the next day my interaction with people were different. So then I did some research. I actually one night watched like 3-4 hours of porn. I would like in a little village there in San Marcos, like Titlan.
I know San Marcos.
Yeah, San Marcos.
Yeah, in Guatemala.
Guatemala.
Yeah, I know it so well.
I was living there, and I was doing all these amazing workshops and deep spiritual journeys and stuff. So I was like super in tune with myself. And I would like interact with people in the village, and it would be really come from love, and I would be a warm interaction. And then one night I decided I'm gonna do this experiment. I don't know why the fuck I just decided. I watched porn for like probably 4 hours or 5 hours, and I think I probably also, I'm sure, ejaculated or so. Yeah. Fuck, bro. The next day I walked in that village, and I promise you, it was, my interaction with the people was just different. I wasn't trying to, it was off, I wasn't trying to do anything different. I was just walking, but I noticed the people around me, their energies with me was a little bit, it's funny, and my energies with them was different. So this is a beautiful story from, of a beautiful realization for me, that experiment, because normally, I'll give you an example. So normally, if I would see a beautiful woman, and I I would look into her, her eyes, and I would I'm talking about that time in the village now.
Yeah.
Even though I was in a sort of a space, I would look and smile, and I would just appreciate. And sometimes even wow, gorgeous. And I promise you, I haven't encountered one woman in my life that wouldn't go wow, thank you, man. There's very few women that will be triggered if you do that. Wow, that's beautiful. So what I noticed the next day after watching the porn, I didn't actually do that. I would see the beautiful woman, and then I would walk away, and then until she turned around, then I would check.
Oh man!
You notice that different energy.
Different energy.
So different. And I wasn't trying; it just naturally happened.
Yeah,
it was almost like it's almost like a little bit. I wouldn't call it dark energy, because I don't like dark.
Like a bit seedy.
There's a bit of a seedy energy.
Yeah.
A bit of a seedy energy, So I wasn't confident enough to just look at her and smile and look at her. I had to wait for her to turn around, or when she walked away, then to look and whatever. And there's nothing wrong looking at beautiful women, but how do you do it?
Yeah.
And what I then noticed is that I was doing that, and then as I then walked away, I actually felt my energy depleted. So I wasn't just maybe even drawing some energy from her or whatever, but a strange way I was doing it was also harming myself.
Yes.
And potentially maybe harming her, I'm not sure. But fascinating. So that's, it's a long answer to that short question, but it's an illustration for me in a practical way how porn can affect your life.
Yes.
It changes your energy field, man.
Yeah.
And I'm at a point now where I don't think anything is either good or bad. So I think there is a place for porn. I don't think it's
completely null and void. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think there's massive dangers to it, and to be aware of it, and especially if you do it on a daily basis, and especially if you ejaculate to it, and especially if this is your go-to. How the hell are you going to meet this other beautiful, sexy woman if you're in the screen the whole time? Plus your energy goes there.
Yeah.
So if you stop watching the porn, then you actually start meeting women.
Yes.
I had a guy in Prague, it was my course, and on a 21-day course, and he wasn't watching porn, doesn't ejaculate, and he said, fuck, these chicks just started coming up to him and talking to him.
Yeah.
So, because it's
when
an
you
energy
stop
thing.
that, right?
Yeah, when you stop watching porn, because his energy changed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I think, and it's amazing how, within the energy field, how that can be sensed by women, right?
Definitely.
It's incredible, how that shifts in your life when you do stop watching porn.
Sure.
Because I can remember as well, initially, it used to be the thing, guys used to just get the tapes, and we used to look in the scopes and those things. It used to be oh man, rub it, get the coin, bro, get the
little stars on the nipples in South Africa.
Get the coin, bro. And it's it's just it's as you say. It's super interesting, right? It's nice because I feel now much more in this exploration around sexuality, and as you said, it's okay, if you ejaculate, that's okay too.
Yes.
It's not that's what I love about what you just said, because it's we are so conditioned. Then if I start to say now, I'm working on my sexuality and I want to make love for longer and this, and then I started to realize, but if you've got a hot woman and you're with her and you ejaculate, why then after that blame yourself or be hard on yourself, even if you are in a process of becoming more conscious in your life, and especially your sexual life. And I felt that is a big shift as well for men, because we're either beating ourselves up that we're not lasting long enough. Now we're beating ourselves up that we went a little bit further. So it's it's really something about also self-love, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. That's something I wanted to mention earlier also. So I mean, on average only every 2-3 weeks ejaculate, but last week I ejaculated 4 or 5 times in a week. I just decided this is ejaculation
this is the week. I'm signed up.
I'm signed up, and also see how many times I can ejaculate. What's my refractory period? You're getting a bit older. No, it's still good,
Yeah.
That thing when you ejaculate and then before you're hard again, they call it a refractory period.
Yes.
So exactly. And I was just having fun and playing with that. Yeah, so that's super important, huh?
Yeah.
It's super important if you practice this thing is that if you do ejaculate to still go into and enjoy the experience. You know?
Yeah.
Because, it's so easy to happen, then now you're with this woman and they ejaculate, and as you ejaculate, say, oh, fuck!
And she's like, what do you mean fuck? Like, is it supposed to be good, right?
No, that's not super. I don't think it's super sexy for her,
Yeah, I
as
think
you ejaculate, you go, oh fuck, obviously that's not going to be nice for her, and plus not nice for you because you're not enjoying it. So I'm now at a point. I mean, I also have done it. I've done it once or twice. I went, oh god, that wasn't. So now I'm in it. If I crash over the edge and I feel I'm now crashing, then I just go with it, man. I just enjoy it.
Yeah. My one question would be then is it going to take a lot of practice to get to that point, or is it like anything? It's like to retrain your body in that way. What are we looking at? Like in terms of a timeline, is it different for everyone? How would one look at that and then say, is it something that one has to practice every single day of your life, or?
I think it's just by starting the awareness of you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing is just to start and to realize that you don't have to ejaculate every time, and to realize that orgasm and ejaculation are two different things.
Yeah.
And it's not spiritual woo.
Yeah.
This is like scientifically, medically, proven. It's two different things, and I probably don't have enough time to go into that detail of that now.
Yes.
But once you actually start just getting a bit of knowledge about that, either watch a lot of YouTube videos, do some courses with some guys, not just me, the other guys also around the world doing this. Then you start knowing that, and then start playing and experimenting with it, and then actually to have fun with it. As you said earlier, guys can be so fucking hard on ourselves,
Yeah.
Men can be so tough and also. So then to just have fun and play with it and start experimenting with it. What a better place to experiment, either self-pleasuring or then with your woman,
Yeah.
Your partner, your man, whatever, It's just not just for with your straight or gay, whatever,
Yeah.
One or two gay guys on my course also, that's it's a great thing for everyone to do.
Yes.
But then to start practicing and playing with that, and what a beautiful way to experiment, So
Yes.
now you make love, with this, with your partner, and play around with it and breathe the energy out, do these things, and every now and then you crash over the edge, but that's fine to crash over the edge because then you find where the edge is. So it's a journey.
Yes.
It's a journey, and it's like it's weeks, it's months, it's years, it's an ongoing journey. I'm still on a journey,
Yeah, man.
I'm still on a journey, Sometimes I find, wow, I'm all of a sudden super close.
Yeah,
Experiment. What should I do? Maybe breathe a bit more, expand my energy, but I can play around with stuff.
Yes.
So I would say not to take it too seriously, to see it as just a playing and having fun with it.
Yes.
And then it will build. Then your body will get the knowledge, get the experience. You start becoming better at it. You see your lovemaking, kind of getting to another levels, which is another motivation. Then your woman see that. You have to discuss it with her. That's so super important, because if you don't discuss it with her, then she's going to really freak out, because women are so linked to your ejaculation.
Yeah, of course.
So you have to discuss it with them, that there's not their desirability that's an issue. Doing this thing.
Yeah.
But when you start experiencing that, then it's also motivation for you. It's like going to the gym, and you're getting a bit fitter and stronger. Wow, and then you get more. So it's the same thing. Once you see those results, then it's easier to expand it more.
And I love what you said about your partner, because I think that's also consciously relating with them and the communication that you have with them, because obviously in that process they're as much there as you, right? And if they are aware of that, and then they can actually help you potentially in that process as well. It's amazing. It's so good to chat with you. I'm so stoked that we could meet in this way, and I just feel like there's so much more that we could even go into around this life and the beauty of this path, and just like all the things that you've gone through in your life, and to where you are now.
It's same here, man. And I'd love to also hear more about what you're doing out there, and in the jungle and plant medicine and stuff. Yeah, so let's keep on these conversations. I think it's super cool, man. I mean, that good.
Man, eh?
Awesome, brother.
The man, eh?
Love you, bro. You too, bro.